So long a letter by Mariama Bâ Chapter. I have received your letter. By way of reply, I am beginning this diary, my prop in my distress. Our long association has taught me that confiding in others allays pain. Your presence in my life is by no means fortuitous. Our grandmothers in their compounds were separated by a fence, and would exchange messages daily. Our mothers used to argue over who would look after our uncles and aunts. As for us, we wore out trappers and sandals on the same stony road to the Quranic school. We buried our milk teeth in the same holes, and begged our fairy godmothers to restore them to us, more splendid than before. If over the years, and passing through the realities of life, dreams die, I still keep intact my memories, the salt of remembrance. I conjure you up. The past is reborn, along with its procession of emotions. I close my eyes. Ebb and tide of feeling, heat and dazzlement, the wood fires, the sharp green mango, bitten into turns, a delicacy in our greedy mouths. I close my eyes. Ebb and tide of images. Drops of sweat beading your mother's ochre-coloured face as she emerges from the kitchen. The procession of young wet girls chattering on their way back from the springs. We walked the same paths from adolescence to maturity, where the past begets the present. My friend, my friend, my friend. I called 3 times. Yesterday you were divorced. Today I am a widow. Modu is dead. How am I to tell you? One does not fix appointments with fate. Fate grasps whom it wants, when it wants. When it moves in the direction of your desires, it brings you plenitude. But more often than not, it unsettles, crosses you. Then one has to endure. I endured the telephone call which disrupted my life. A taxi quickly hailed. Fast. Fast. Faster still. My throat is dry. There is a rigid lump in my chest. Fast. Faster still. At last, the hospital. The mixed smell of suppurations and ether. The hospital distorted faces. A train of tearful people, known and unknown, witnesses to this awful tragedy. A long corridor, which seems to stretch out endlessly. At the end, a room. In the room, a bed. On the bed, Modu stretched out, cut off from the world of the living by a white sheet in which he is completely enveloped. A trembling hand moves forward and slowly uncovers the body. His hairy chest, at rest forever, is visible through his crumpled blue shirt with thin stripes. This face, set in pain and surprise, is indeed his. The bald forehead, the half-open mouth are indeed his. I want to grasp his hand, but someone pulls me away. I can hear Mordo, his doctor friend, explaining to me. A heart attack came on suddenly in his office, while he was dictating a letter. The secretary had the presence of mind to call me. Mordo recounts how he arrived too late with the ambulance. I think. The doctor after death. He mimes the massaging of the heart that was undertaken, as well as the futile effort at mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Again, I think. Heart massage, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, ridiculous weapons against the divine will. I listen to the words that create around me a new atmosphere in which I move, a stranger and tormented. Death. The tenuous passage between 2 opposite worlds, one tumultuous, the other still. Where to lie down? Middle age demands dignity. I hold tightly onto my prayer beads. I tell the beads ardently, remaining standing on legs of jelly. My loins beat, as to the rhythm of childbirth. Cross-sections of my life spring involuntarily from my memory, Grandiose verses from the Quran, noble words of consolation fight for my attention. Joyous miracle of birth, dark miracle of death. Between the two, a life, a destiny, says Mordoba. I look intently at Mordo. He seems to be taller than usual in his white overall. He seems to me thin. His red eyes express 40 years of friendship. I admire his noble hands, hands of an absolute delicacy, supple hands used to tracking down illness. Those hands, moved by friendship and a rigorous science, could not save his friend. Chapter 2. Modu Fall is indeed dead. Asa 2. The uninterrupted procession of men and women who have learned the wails and tears all around me confirm his death. This condition of extreme tension sharpens my suffering, and continues till the following day, the day of interment. What a seething crowd of human beings come from all parts of the country, where the radio has relayed the news. Women, close relatives, are busy. They must take incense, eau de cologne, cotton wool to the hospital for the washing of the dead one. The 7 meters of white muslin, the only clothing Islam allows for the dead, are carefully placed in a new basket. The Zemzem, the miracle water from the holy places of Islam religiously kept by each family, is not forgotten. Rich, dark wrappers are chosen to cover Modu. My back propped up by cushions, legs outstretched, my head covered with a black wrapper, I follow the comings and goings of people. Across from me, a new winnowing fan bought for the occasion receives the first arms. The presence of my co-wife beside me irritates me. She has been installed in my house for the funeral, in accordance with tradition. With each passing hour her cheeks become more deeply hollowed, acquire ever moorings, those big and beautiful eyes which open and close on their secrets, perhaps their regrets. At the age of love and freedom from care, this child is dogged by sadness. While the men, in a long, irregular file of official and private cars, public buses, lorries and mopeds, accompany Modu to his last rest, people were for a long time to talk of the crowd which followed the funeral procession. Our sisters-in-law undo our hair. My co-wife and myself are put inside rough and ready tent made of a wrapper pulled taut above our heads and set up for the occasion. While our sisters-in-law are constructing it, the women present, informed of the work in hand, get up and throw some coins onto the fluttering canopy so as to ward off evil spirits. This is the moment dreaded by every Senegalese woman, the moment when she sacrifices her possessions as gifts to her family-in-law, and, worse still, beyond her possessions she gives up her personality, her dignity, becoming a thing in the service of the man who has married her, his grandfather, his grandmother, his father, his mother, his brother, his sister, his uncle, his aunt, his male and female cousins, his friends. Her behavior is conditioned. No sister-in-law will touch the head of any wife who has been stingy, unfaithful or inhospitable. As for ourselves, we have been deserving, and our sisters-in-law sing a chorus of praises chanted at the top of their voices. Our patience before all trials, the frequency of our gifts, find their justification and reward today. Our sisters-in-law give equal consideration to 30 years and 5 years of married life. With the same ease and the same words, they celebrate 12 maternities and 3. I note with outrage this desire to level out, in which Modu's new mother-in-law rejoices. Having washed their hands in a bowl of water placed at the entrance to the house, the men, back from the cemetery, file past the family grouped around us, the widows. They offer their condolences punctuated with praises of the deceased. Modu, friend of the young, as of the old. Modu, the lion-hearted, champion of the oppressed. Modu, at ease as much in a suit as in a kaftan. Modu, good brother, good husband, good Muslim. May God forgive him, may he regret his earthly stay in his heavenly bliss. May the earth rest lightly on him. They are there, his childhood playmates on the football ground, or during bird hunts, when they used catapults. They are there, his classmates. They are there, his companions in the trade union struggles. The sigil and digil come one after the other, poignant, while skilled hands distribute to the crowd biscuits, sweets, cola nuts, judiciously mixed, the first offerings to heaven for the peaceful repose of the deceased soul. Chapter 3. On the third day, the same comings and goings of friends, relatives, the poor, the unknown. The name of the deceased, who was popular, has mobilized a buzzing crowd, welcomed in my house, that has been stripped of all that could be stolen, all that could be spoilt. Mats of all sorts are spread out everywhere there is space. Metal chairs hired for the occasion take on a blue hue in the sun. Comforting words from the Quran fill the air. Divine words, divine instructions, impressive promises of punishment or joy, exhortations to virtue, warnings against evil, exaltation of humility, of faith. Shivers run through me. My tears flow and my voice joins weakly in the fervent amen which inspires the crowd's ardor at the end of each verse. The smell of the lac cooling in the calabashes pervades the air, exciting. Also passed around are large bowls of red or white rice, cooked here or in neighboring houses. Iced fruit juices, water and curds are served in plastic cups. The men's group eats in silence. Perhaps they remember the stiff body, tied up and lowered by their hands into a gaping hole, quickly covered up again. In the women's corner, nothing but noise, resonant laughter, loud talk, hand slaps, strident exclamations. Friends who have not seen each other for a long time hug each other noisily. Some discuss the latest material on the market. Others indicate where they got their woven wrappers from. The latest bits of gossip are exchanged. They laugh heartily, and roll their eyes and admire the next person's balboo, her original way of using henna, to blacken hands and feet by drawing geometrical figures on them. From time to time an exasperated manly voice rings out a warning, recalls the purpose of the gathering, a ceremony for the redemption of a soul. The voice is quickly forgotten, and the brouhaha begins all over again, increasing in volume. In the evening comes the most disconcerting part of this third day's ceremony. More people, more jostling in order to hear and see better. Groups are formed according to relationships, according to blood ties, areas, corporations. Each group displays its own contribution to the costs. In former times this contribution was made in kind: millet, livestock, rice, flour, oil, sugar, milk. Today it is made conspicuously in banknotes, and no one wants to give less than the other. A disturbing display of inner feeling that cannot be evaluated now measured in francs. And again I think how many of the dead would have survived if, before organizing these festive funeral ceremonies, the relative or friend had bought the life-saving prescription or paid for hospitalization. The takings are carefully recorded. It is a debt, to be repaid in similar circumstances. Modu's relatives open an exercise book. Lady mother-in-law, Modu's, and her daughter have a notebook. Fatima, my younger sister, carefully records my takings in a notepad. As I come from a large family in this town, with acquaintances at all levels of society, as I am a school teacher on friendly terms with the pupils' parents, and as I have been Modu's companion for 30 years, I receive the greater share of money and many envelopes. The regard shown me raises me in the eyes of the others, and it is Lady Mother-in-law's turn to be annoyed. Newly admitted into the city's bourgeoisie by her daughter's marriage, she too reaps bank notes. As for her silent, haggard child, she remains a stranger in these circles. The sudden calls from our sisters-in-law bring her out of her stupor. They reappear after their deliberation. They have contributed the large sum of 200,000 francs to dress us. Yesterday, they offered us some excellent ayacree to quench our thirst. The full family's griot is proud of her Ola's go-between, a role handed down from mother to daughter. 100,000 francs from the father's side. 100,000 francs from the mother's side. She counts the notes, blue and pink, one by one, shows them round and concludes, I have much to say about you foals, grandchildren of Damel Mediodio, who have inherited royal blood. But one of you is no more. Today is not a happy day. I weep with you for Modu, whom I used to call Bag of Rice, for he would frequently give me a sack of rice. Therefore accept this money, you worthy widows of a worthy man. The share of each widow must be doubled, as must the gifts of Modu's grandchildren, represented by the offspring of all his male and female cousins. Thus our family-in-law take away with them a wad of notes, painstakingly topped, and leave us utterly destitute, we who will need material support. Afterwards comes a procession of old relatives, old acquaintances, griots, goldsmiths, labs with their honeyed language. The goodbyes following one after the other at an infernal rate are irritating, because they are neither simple nor free. They require, depending on the person leaving, sometimes a coin, sometimes a bank note. Gradually the house empties. The smell of stale sweat and food blenders trails in the air, unpleasant and nauseating. Cola nuts spat out here and there have left red stains. My tiles, kept with such painstaking care, are blackened. Oil stains on the walls, balls of crumpled paper. What a balance sheet for a day. My horizon lightened. See an old woman. Who is she? Where is she from? Bent over, the ends of her babu tied behind her, she empties into a plastic bag the leftovers of red rice. Her smiling face tells of the pleasant day she has just had. She wants to take back proof of this to her family, living perhaps in Aucum, the Arroyo, or Pekin. Standing upright, her eyes meeting my disapproving look, she mutters between teeth reddened by cola nuts. Lady, death is just as beautiful as life has been. Alas, it's the same story on the 8th and 40th days, when those who have learned belatedly make up for lost time. Light attire showing off slim waistlines, prominent backsides, the new brassiere or the one bought at the second-hand market, chewing sticks wedged between teeth, white or flowered shawls, heavy smell of incense and of bongo, loud voices, strident laughter. And yet we are told in the Quran that on the third day the dead body swells and fills its tomb. We are told that on the 8th it bursts, and we are also told that on the 40th day it is stripped. What then is the significance of these joyous, institutionalized festivities that accompany our prayers for God's mercy? Who has come out of self-interest? Who has come to quench his own thirst? Who has come for the sake of mercy? Who has come so that he may remember? Tonight Bina too, my co-wife, will return to her Sikup villa. At last. Phew. The visits of condolence continue. The sick, those who have journeyed, or have merely arrived late, as well as the lazy, come to fulfill what they consider to be a sacred duty. Child naming ceremonies may be missed, but never a funeral. Coins and notes continue to pour on the beckoning fan. Alone, I live in a monotony broken only by purifying baths, the changing of my morning clothes every Monday and Friday. I hope to carry out my duties fully. My heart concurs with the demands of religion. Reared since childhood on their strict precepts, I expect not to fail. The walls that limit my horizon for 4 months and 10 days do not bother me. I have enough memories in me to ruminate upon, and these are what I am afraid of, for they smack of bitterness. May their evocation not soil the state of purity in which I must live. Till tomorrow. Chapter 4 Asa 2. My friend, perhaps I am boring you by relating what you already know. I have never observed so much, because I have never been so concerned. The family meeting held this morning in my sitting room is at last over. You can easily guess those who were present: Lady Mother-in-law, her brother and her daughter, Bina too, who even thinner. Old Towser Modu's brother, and the Imam from the mosque in his area, Mordo B.A., my daughter and her husband Abdu. The mirrors commanded by the Quran requires that a dead person be stripped of his most intimate secrets. This is exposed to others what was carefully concealed. These exposures crudely explain a man's life. With consternation, I measure the extent of Modu's betrayal. His abandonment of his first family, myself and my children, was the outcome of the choice of a new life. He rejected us. He mapped out his future without taking our existence into account. His promotion to the rank of technical advisor in the Ministry of Public Works, in exchange for which, according to the spiteful, he checked the trade union revolt, could not control the mire of expenses by which he was engulfed. Dead without a penny saved. Acknowledgement of debts. A pile of them. Cloth and gold traders, home delivery grocers and butchers, car purchase installments. Hold on. The star attraction of this stripping. The origins of the elegant Cup Villa, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, pink and blue, large sitting room, a 3-room flat, built at his own expense at the bottom of the second courtyard for Lady Mother-in-law, and furniture from France for his new wife and furniture constructed by local carpenters for Lady Mother-in-law. This house and its chic contents were acquired by a bank loan granted on the mortgage of Villa Falline, where I live. Although the title deeds of this house bear his name, it is none the less our common property, acquired by our joint savings. Insult upon injury. Moreover, he continued the monthly payments of 75,000 francs to the SCAP. These payments were to go on for about 10 years before the house would become his. 4 million francs borrowed with ease, because of his privileged position, which had enabled him to pay for Lady Mother-in-law and her husband, to visit Mecca to acquire the titles of Al-Hajja and Al-Haji, which equally enabled Bina to exchange her Alfa Romeos at the slightest dent. Now I understand the terrible significance of Modu's abandonment of our joint bank account. He wanted to be financially independent so as to have enough elbow room. And then, having withdrawn Bina from school, he paid her a monthly allowance of 50,000 francs, just like a salary due to her. The young girl, who was very gifted, wanted to continue her studies, to sit for her baccalaureate. So as to establish his rule, Modu, wickedly, determined to remove her from the critical and unsparing world of the young. He therefore gave in to all the conditions of the grasping lady mother-in-law, and even signed a paper committing himself to paying the said amount. Lady mother-in-law brandished the paper, for she firmly believed that the payments would continue, even after Modu's death, out of the estate. As for my daughter, Daba, she waved about a bailiff's affidavit, dated the very day of her father's death, that listed all the contents of the Sikup villa. The list supplied by Lady Mother-in-law and Binatu made no mention of certain objects and items of furniture, which had mysteriously disappeared, or had been fraudulently removed. You know that I am excessively sentimental. I was not at all pleased by this display on either side. 5. When I stopped yesterday, I probably left you astonished by my disclosures. Was it madness, weakness, irresistible love? What inner confusion led Modufal to marry Binatu? To overcome my bitterness, I think of human destiny. Each life has its share of heroism, an obscure heroism, born of abdication, of renunciation and acceptance under the merciless whip of fate. I'll think of all the blind people the world over, moving in darkness. I think of all the paralyzed the world over, dragging themselves about. I think of all the lepers the world over, wasted by their disease, victims of a sad fate which you did not choose. Compared with your lamentations, what is my quarrel, cruelly motivated, with a dead man who no longer has any hold over my destiny? Combining your despair, you could have been avengers, and made them tremble, all those who are drunk on their wealth. Tremble, those upon whom fate has bestowed favors. A hoard powerful in its repugnance and revolt, you could have snatched the bread that your hunger craves. Your stoicism has made you not violent or subversive but true heroes, unknown in the mainstream of history, never upsetting established order, despite your miserable condition. I repeat, beside your visible deformities, what are moral infirmities from which in any case you are not immune? Thinking of you, I thank God for my eyes which daily embrace heaven and earth. If today moral fatigue makes my limbs stiff, tomorrow it will leave my body. Then, relieved, my legs will carry me slowly, and I shall again have around me the iodine, and the blue of the sea. The star and white cloud will be mine. The breath of wind will again refresh my face. I will stretch out, turn around, I will vibrate. Oh, health, live in me. Oh, health, my efforts cannot for long take my mind off my disappointment. I think of the suckling baby, no sooner born than orphaned. I think of the blind man who will never see his child smile. I think of the cross the one-armed man has to bear. I think, but my despair persists, but my rancor remains, but the waves of an immense sadness break in me. Madness or weakness? Heartlessness or irresistible love? What inner torment led Modufal to marry Binatu? And to think that I loved this man passionately, to think that I gave him 30 years of my life, to think that 12 times over I carried his child. The addition of a rival to my life was not enough for him. In _loving _someone _else, he burned his past, both morally and materially. He dared to commit such an act of disavowal. And yet, what didn't he do to make me his wife? Chapter 62. You remember the morning train that took us for the first time to Pontyville, the teachers' training college in Sbikaton. Pontyville is the countryside still green from the last rains, a celebration of youth right in the middle of nature. Banjo music in dormitories transformed into dance floors, conversations held along the rows of geraniums, or under the thick mango trees. Modufal, The very moment you bowed before me, asking me to dance, I knew you were the one I was waiting for. Tall and athletically built, of course. Olive-colored skin due to your distant Moorish blood, no question. Virility and fineness of features harmoniously blended, once again, no question. But, above all, you knew how to be tender. You could fathom every thought, every desire. You knew many undefinable things, which glorified you and sealed our relationship. As we danced, your forehead, hairline already receding, bent over my own. The same happy smile lit up our faces. The pressure of your hand became more tender, more possessive. Everything in me gave in, and our relationship endured over the school years, and during the holidays, strengthened in me by the discovery of your subtle intelligence, of your embracing sensitivity, of your readiness to help, of your ambition, which suffered no mediocrity. It was this ambition which led you, on leaving school, to prepare on your own for the 2 examinations of the baccalaureate. Then you left for France, and, according to your letters, you lived there as a recluse, attaching little importance to the glitter that met your regard, but you grasped the deep sense of a history that has worked so many wonders, and of a great culture that overwhelmed you. The milky complexion of the women had no hold on you. Again, quoting from your letters, on the strictly physical plane, the white woman's advantage over the black woman lies in the variety of her color, the abundance, length, and softness of her hair. There are also the eyes, which can be blue, green, often the color of new honey. You also used to complain of the somberness of the skies, under which no coconut trees waved their tops. You missed the swinging hips of black women walking along the pavements, this gracious, deliberate slowness characteristic of Africa, which charmed your eyes. You were sick at heart at the dogged rhythm of the life of the people, and the numbing effect of the cold. You would finish by saying that your studies were your staff, your buttress. You would end with a string of endearments, and conclude by reassuring me. It's you whom I carry within me. You are my protecting black angel. Would I could quickly find you, if only to hold your hand tightly, so that I may forget hunger and thirst and loneliness. And you returned in triumph, with a degree in law. In spite of your voice and your gift of oratory, you preferred obscure work, less well paid but constructive for your country, to the showiness of the lawyer. Your achievement did not stop there. Your introduction of your friend Maud O.B.S. into our circle was to change the life of my best friend, Asa too. I no longer scorn my mother's reserve concerning you, for a mother can instinctively feel where her child's happiness lies. I no longer laugh when I think that she found you too handsome, too polished, too perfect for a man. She often spoke of the wide gap between your 2 upper incisors, the sign of the primacy of sensuality in the individual. What didn't she do, from then on, to separate us? She could see in you only the eternal khaki suit, the uniform of your school. All she remembered of you were your visits, considered too long. You were idle, she said, therefore with plenty of time to waste. And you would use that time to stuff my head, to the disadvantage of more interesting young people, because, being the first pioneers of the promotion of African women, there were very few of us. Men would call us scatterbrain. Others labelled us devils. But many wanted to possess us. How many dreams did we nourish hopelessly that could have been fulfilled as lasting happiness, and that we abandoned to embrace others, those that have burst miserably like soap bubbles, leaving us empty-handed. Chapter 7 Asa 2. I will never forget the white woman who was the first to desire for us an uncommon destiny. Together, let us recall our school, green, pink, blue, yellow, a veritable rainbow. Green, blue and yellow, the colors of the flowers everywhere in the compound. Pink, the color of the dormitories, with the beds impeccably made. Let us hear the walls of our school come to life with the intensity of our study. Let us relive its intoxicating atmosphere at night, while the evening song, our joint prayer, rang out, full of hope. The admission policy, which was based on an entrance examination for the whole of former French West Africa, now broken up into autonomous republics, made possible a fruitful blend of different intellects, characters, manners, and customs. Nothing differentiated us, apart from specific racial features, the O girl from Dahomey and the Malinke one from Guinea. Friendships were made that have endured the test of time and distance. We were true sisters, destined for the same mission of emancipation, to lift us out of the bog of tradition, superstition and custom, to make us appreciate a multitude of civilizations without renouncing our own, to raise our vision of the world, cultivate our personalities, strengthen our qualities, to make up for our inadequacies, to develop universal moral values in us. These were the aims of our admirable headmistress. The word love had a particular resonance in her. She loved us without patronizing us, without plaits either standing on end or bent down, with our loose blouses, our appers. She knew how to discover and appreciate our qualities. How I think of her! If the memory of her has triumphed over the ingratitude of time, now that flowers no longer smell as sweetly or as strongly as before, now that age and mature reflection have stripped our dreams of their poetic virtue, it is because the path chosen for our training and our blossoming has not been at all fortuitous. It has accorded with the profound choices made by New Africa for the promotion of the black woman. Thus, free from frustrating taboos and capable now of discernment, why should I follow my mother's finger pointing at Daouda dying, still a bachelor, but too mature for my 18 years? Working as an African doctor at the polyclinic, he was well-to-do, and knew how to use his position to advantage. His villa, perched on a rock on the Corniche facing the sea, was the meeting place for the young elite. Nothing was missing, from the refrigerator, containing its pleasant drinks, to the record player, which exuded sometimes languorous, sometimes frenzied music. Daouda dying also knew how to win hearts. Useful presents for my mother, ranging from a sack of rice, appreciated in that period of war penury, to the frivolous gift for me, daintily wrapped in paper and tied with ribbons. But I preferred the man in the eternal khaki suit. Our marriage was celebrated without dowry, without pomp, under the disapproving looks of my father, before the painful indignation of my frustrated mother, under the sarcasm of my surprised sisters, in our town struck dumb with astonishment.